These next two breathing practices are for overall relaxation, but they're also practices that can help you tune into the subtle shifts into the parasympathetic, the relaxation part of your nervous system. So the first one is the physiological sigh, and this is 2 inhales through the nose and then 1 exhale through the mouth. That's what it looks and sounds like. So once you have the foundations of breathing practices, in other words, you are familiar with the expansion on the inhale, contraction on the exhale, you breathe through your nose unless otherwise like directed in this case. The physiological sigh can be an intervention for anxiety, anger, frustration. So one of the things that happens throughout perimenopause, through the whole transition and sometimes on the other side of the river, is that we find ourselves filled with frustration and anger like almost instantly. And one of the things that can happen, happens to the best of us, is that we become so aware of who we really are and what is really important to us. And sometimes we awaken to that at a rapid pace, and then what's around us isn't that. And like I said, it happens to the best of us. And so it can bring these moments of frustration of, how did I get here, and how do I make this better for myself? So I use the physiological sigh when I was in a position where I didn't want to lose my temper. I could feel I was going to lose my temper, and I didn't want to hurt someone that I love, which is usually what happens when I lose my temper, because I yell at someone. So the physiological sigh, let's try it again. And now let's try about 5 in a row. You may have found that after 1 or 3, or maybe it took 5, that there's more room for exhale, there's more room for inhale. You may have noticed a quieting of your mind, a softening of your belly. And these are the observations that you want to tune into so that you attune your awareness to the clues in your body and your breath as to where you are. You know where you are mentally, but being able to be sensitive to the sensations in your body around your breath can help you take control of that and then move into a more calm state of being. So this, as I said, the physiological sigh is useful as an intervention when it's practiced for a few minutes, 3 to 5 minutes a day. It's been shown to lower cortisol levels, to lower baseline anxiety. It takes a little bit of practice to build up to that length of time without like starting to hyperventilate or feel lightheaded or anything like that. So what I recommend, and how I started incorporating it regularly into my life, is using it during transitionary periods. So and that's just for me personally, like transitioning from in the house to out of the house, or from work to home, or from even from one sort of like tasking area to another. There's a danger for chaos. And this is true in life, right? The transitionary periods, and of which menopause is one, there's this potential for great growth, but also potential for chaos. So, or it is chaos. So there's potential for growth or what the opposite of growth, right? Disaster, not disaster, death. The opposite of growth, whatever that is. Anyway, so transitioning, even from room to room, practicing a couple, getting to that into the habit of practicing a couple times, and noticing what that breathing pattern does to your body, and then notice what it does to your mind. And then, so if you just, start to practice that during your transitions, then you have that skill, and then you can use it as an intervention. So, this is my story, right? My son gets into the car, and I see that he doesn't have his winter coat again, and he left it in the locker. And I, just thinking about it, I can like feel my blood. Oh gosh, that's what the sign did to me. Wants to boil, but I can do that a couple of times, and he'll be like, and he knows now, because he'll be like, oh, are you stressed out? Are you overwhelmed? Because I don't want to yelling at him for like not remembering his coat. Most of the time is not going to help him remember it next time. So, so that's how it can be used as an intervention. The next breath practice that we're going to do together is, I call a Shiva breath. It's similar to a box breath. You may have been taught it as a box breath. I was taught it as that's what I was taught it was called. This is a breath where the inhale, the retention, the exhale, and the suspension, those four parts of the breath, are all of an even length. So before we practice this, we're going to focus on the exhale. So you're just going to focus on your exhale. And if you haven't done so already, bringing yourself into a comfortable position. So if you're seated, the tops of your legs are out straight, your feet are on the floor. If you're seated on the floor, your hips are above your knees. This is to give your breathing apparatus the buoyancy necessary. So focusing on the exhale out of your nose, just noticing the exhale and allowing the inhale to happen. If you were to put effort into your breath, it would be into the exhale. And now counting the exhale for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And now counting the suspension, which is the pause after the exhale, for 5. So you're going to exhale for 5, pause in the retention, or excuse me, in the suspension for 5. And just allow the inhale to happen. And now on your next breath, you'll count the inhale for 5. So now you're counting your exhale for 5, the retention, the pause at the bottom of the exhale for 5, and the inhale for 5. And now you guessed it, adding the retention, which is the pause at the top of the inhale, that space, adding 5 there. So now you're inhaling for 5, retaining for 5, exhaling for 5, and suspending for 5. So give that a try. Know that this pranayama is an advanced practice. So if you're not sure you're doing it right, just know that you are moving towards practicing in a more and more refined manner. Letting go as best you can to getting it right. And you're moving towards a place where you can intuitively feel that there is an evenness to all 4 parts of your breath. Evenness in the sense that they're all the same length, and gradually working up to 7. So if 5 felt a little bit long for you, then practice with 3 or 4, and then gradually moving your way up to 7. Another way to get comfortable with this pranayama is to be aware of your breath. So being aware of your breath just means watching your breath, noticing your breath, and just count what your natural inhale and exhale is. Just noticing what your natural length is. And what you'll most likely find is that the inhale and the exhale are different. They're not usually the same length. So pick the longest one and then try to extend the other side up to the longest one, and then add in the pauses. So that's another way to start to learn how to do this. As I said, it's an advanced pranayama. I wanted to make it available to you. I don't usually teach it, not in person, but with this course, I wanted to include it and make it available to you so that you have a tool to be able to really move deeply into a relaxation response and really move deeply into your awareness of not only your prana, your aliveness, but your power. When you are practicing a complex, advanced pranayama such as this, you are fostering your awareness of how much power you have in your life. How that's the power that your choices have to direct your life. And this is the power that we are drawn to and need to feel through if we are going to thrive through menopause. Because being in denial of who and what we are is what creates the internal friction and what creates the external, which then creates the external friction and causes us to be unable to sleep, unable to concentrate, and to have so much difficulty around this transition because we're trying to power through and be somebody that we're not, and live by somebody else's rules. So all that being said, know that this pranayama, just like the physiological sigh, takes some practice. And please feel free to reach out to me through email or comment or whatever, or phone call to talk about getting some more direction with this breathing practice, or just if you have any questions, of course, feel free to reach out to me.